Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. I'm Dan Thomas, joined in the studio today by Ale Moreno and Stevie Nicol. We'll kick things off by continuing our reflections on what happened at Wembley yesterday. Of course, Brazil beating England by 1-0. It was a disappointing performance from the hosts. England fans not happy. Here's what Gareth Southgate had to say.
I was pleased. Clearly don't like losing football matches, but I thought there were lots of very good individual performances from players who've hardly played for England. I thought our more regular players were very good. With 15 minutes to go, we're thinking, well, we've managed to see a lot of new players. We've had more than our share of the game. We've had as many attempts on goal as they have. So the difference in the end was one moment, really, and that is the ruthlessness of football at this level.
Nedum Onuoha here, and so is Mark Ogden. That sigh wasn't for them, I promise. It was from the comments from my national team manager. All's rosy. Shut up, Mark. How dare you criticise the manager when we lose 1-0?
I've not criticised him, but I will do now if you want. Listen, international friendlies before a major tournament are always hard work, and I was watching the game last night. It was very flat. There was no tempo to it. The crowd was silent. It must have been quite difficult to play in that atmosphere because when you watch a Premier League game, the intensity is so high. You know that the players are on it 100%. And you're watching that last night, you're thinking, a lot of these players don't want to be there. They're just going through the motions. And, the mistake Harry Maguire made when Brazil almost scored in the first half. It was just poor. It was just a poor game. And then you hear Gareth Southgate after the game talking like that. And it was even flatter than the game itself, the way he was talking then about individuals did really well. So, some players did okay. I mean, does anybody care? Does anybody care what happens in a friendly ahead of a major tournament? That's the key for me. It's the major tournament. I think sometimes these games, you're probably better off having a training session for a week just to go through systems, etc. Because playing a friendly, it sort of happened to Kyle Walker. For me, Kyle Walker, that could derail Man City's treble bid because obviously we saw what he did last season against Vinicius Junior in the Real Madrid semi-final. Now, if he misses that game against Real Madrid, if he misses the Arsenal game this weekend, that's a massive blow for Man City. For what? For basically a pointless friendly against Brazil, which was just basically put on to raise money for the FA.
That's a different conversation, by the way.
But let's stick to the a lot of players impressed me. Who?
Yeah, okay, exactly. Well, I think when he starts his statement, Gareth Southgate, and saying, I'm very pleased. I think that's a turn-off to everybody that was watching the game from an English perspective. What do you mean? What do you mean it was really good? What do you mean that you had just as many opportunities as Brazil did? The clear opportunities were to Brazil. Mm-hmm. And he's looking at it from the perspective of England, I suppose, but he's ignoring that Paquetá hit the post, that Vini Jr. was in a 1v1 situation and mishits the shot on goal, and that's why Kyle Walker gets an opportunity to clear it off the line. He is conveniently forgetting the many opportunities that Brazil had in this game
as well.
And mind you, this is not your father's Brazil. This is not even your brother's Brazil. This Brazil is not even recognized. If you ask just a random, regular fan in Brazil to look at this starting lineup, they'll be like, who's this guy? And who's that guy? And Danilo's still with the national team? Wait. Danilo is the captain of the national team? And so there is context to this conversation and there is nuance to this conversation that goes well beyond saying, I thought we were good. I thought we carried a lot of the game. I thought there were a lot of good individual performances. It's a lot of generalities, but when you get down to it, England were disappointing, were predictable, were conservative, did not take chances going forward. Brazil were the team that surprisingly were the more dynamic, and they were the ones that really created chances going forward.
Gareth Southgate can't believe that, can he?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I think normally you would turn around and say, come on, who are you kidding? But I'm not so sure. I'm kind of stuck in the middle. I understand playing in friendlies. Nobody really enjoys it. Nobody looks forward to it, even though it is against Brazil at Wembley. And so, for me, the manager should do something to make it interesting. He should maybe try something. You know, for example, playing Conor Gallagher beside Declan Rice, we know that going into the tournament, there's going to be two sitting in front of the back four that are going to be defensive-minded. Why don't you try and look a bit further forward and stick Bellingham beside Declan Rice and have Maddison playing, or bring Foden from the wide area and bring him in the middle and try something. And if you lose, it's just a friendly. But again, Harry Maguire. Why are you playing Harry Maguire? So basically, Harry Maguire's going to start in the Euros.
Yep.
I mean, let's be honest. If Lindelof or Johnny Evans were English, would they be in the England squad? I don't think so. But yet, they're probably starting ahead of Maguire in the Man United team. I mean, things like that are just, to me, are crazy. And it's a friendly, try something, try a new player out at the back, try and do something in the middle of the park. I mean, you know, you can make it not a waste of time for everybody, because that's all this was.
Mark, it just feels like same old England with respect to fly through qualifying, of course, beat the teams they expect to beat. Yet you look at Gareth Southgate's record against, say, the top 10 in the world, and it's poor. It's not good at all. They've lost more than they've won. And you just feel when they come up against any sort of opposition, everyone just kind of shrinks into themselves.
Isn't it? It's the question mark which hangs over the Man United stories, whether he's the guy that can take United to a Champions League or a Premier League. I think not, based on what he's done with England, where you're right, you know, France in the World Cup, Croatia in the World Cup, Italy in the Euros. When it comes up to stepping it up against a very good side, against a top coach, he falls short. But I think another issue with England as well, it just feels like a bit of a cosy club. You know, it feels like that lack of criticism, that lack of edge, that his post-match comments were very kind of, oh, well, it was okay. It was like the chief exec, Mark Bullingham, after the World Cup, praising the squad for doing so well to get to the quarterfinals. There's no sense of edge with England. There's no sense of nastiness in the sense that you've got to push harder, you've got to be more ruthless. You know, Jordan Henderson's still in the squad. Why? He's had a terrible season in Saudi Arabia with Ajax. There's a real aversion to trying something that's a risk with England. And for me, that is a problem. The England team and the Football Association, the FA, they're very, very safe and conservative, and that doesn't win you trophies. And when it comes to the Euros this summer, you know, England have got a really good chance, but we're kind of overlooking the prospect of a team emerging from outside the pack of favourites that could knock England out before the semi-finals. Everybody's talking about France in the semi-finals, etc., etc. Well, if it is France in the semi-finals, England aren't going to win the Euros because England can't beat a team like France because they haven't got the quality. And I don't see anything in Southgate in what he does, what he says,
Mark,
the tactics
Mark,
he
they
picks,
do have the quality, though. This is the problem. They do have the quality. They do have the sort of players there that should be able to go toe-to-toe with someone like France.
Absolutely, but they don't have the quality of coach to put them in a winning kind of formation or with the tactics that you need, with the boldness that you need. You know, if Jose Mourinho or Thomas Tuchel, for instance, were given the England manager's job now, I'd back them to win the Euros because they'd have a coach that would press the right buttons in the right situations. He would go for broke. He would be bold. He would be ruthless. And I don't see Southgate having that. Southgate is great for good old England, get to the quarterfinals, do well, you know, play some nice football, whatever. But they don't win anything. And I don't think Gareth Southgate will win anything with this team because when it comes to the crunch, he reverts back to his cautious, conservative self. And that allows the opposition to come in and win the games and, you know, passes off the pitch like Croatia did and Italy did. I just don't see Gareth Southgate getting past that. And in many ways, this great squad that England have got, this great set of talent, it could be a wasted legacy, really. If Gareth Southgate remains as coach, I don't think he's the guy to take it forward. Nice guy, Gareth Southgate. I think we all like the guy as he is, but I don't think he's a coach. He's not an elite coach. If he was a club manager, he wouldn't be in the top 10 in the Premier League, unless he gets the Man United job, bizarrely. But I don't think he's got those credentials.
And that's my point about Bellingham, trying Bellingham. You know, Gareth Southgate told us that the difference was one opportunity in this game. And he's always talking about the margins are so small. Well, one of the reasons you could say that him and his team don't ever get past that final hurdle is because they don't try and get that extra little edge because of the way he plays the game. You know, if you start Bellingham there, the only thing you know is he's going to try and get in the box regardless of where he is.
But isn't that a little negative in itself? Because Bellingham has been playing so well in that World Premier.
No, listen to what I'm saying.
Why don't you play Mainu in front of the back four, and that gives Declan Rice the freedom to play more forward?
So
why do you have to play a double pivot?
But if you listen to my point, the one thing you know about Bellingham is he's going to get forward. So you're going to end up getting something forward, and you're still going to have a little bit of defensive stability.
No,
as opposed to having Conor Gallagher or Calvin Phillips alongside Declan Rice, where you just got two guys who are going to sit there.
But why can't Mainu do what Jorginho's doing for Arsenal, which gives Rice the freedom?
You're going to turn around and start throwing this on Mainu and say Mainu's going to be the difference between winning the Euros. I don't think
I'm saying I don't think playing Bellingham further back is a constructive way of going forward. I understand what you're saying.
You know when you used to play 4-4-2? You had two midfielders. One would sit, the other one would help out defensively and get forward. That's exactly what he would do. You'll also have a Maddison or a Foden in the middle as well, which means that you're going to get forward. And I'm looking for the edge that Gareth Southgate's talking about, because according to him, it's a little edge that's the difference. There's one example of where you could get an edge.
Nedum has got his technical problems fixed. Nedum, Gareth Southgate, do you like or not?
Yeah, I like him, to be honest. I think it's funny listening to the guys, because obviously we can overreact to this, and they could win the game on Tuesday 4-0, and we'll say it doesn't matter as well. But I think in terms of the style of play and the way he spoke after the game, I don't think it was a great game for England at all. But off the top of my head, I don't remember tons of games like that where they've actually had a bad game. I think at times they've sort of underwhelmed, but realistically, I don't think it's that bad. And as I look at that team, that's not going to be the team that will start the tournament, even for as conservative as I think he can be, and he tends to lean into. You still see Kane go in there, you're seeing Saka go in there. I'm going to see probably more of an attacking midfield, I would say, because as he says himself, that role of a number 6 in England, he knows that there aren't too many who can do that role particularly well. So I think in some ways he'll play to his strengths when the time is needed. And he's trying to look at a few different things, people in different positions like Gordon, like Watkins getting a chance to play. But that's not the team that's going to be playing for England come the Euros. And to put it into perspective, we can overreact to this. But at the same time, Julien Laurent's magnificent France, they lose at home to Germany, who lose to everyone. So, they're just having just a better moment this weekend as, say, England did. But I think the concerns about Maguire and so on, yes, you could address those, some of the mistakes at the back. But the fact is, for England, they do win a lot of games. Yes, they might struggle in that final stage, but so does every team barring one, which tends to be France in recent memory.
The defense for England cannot be France lost to Germany, so therefore we're okay. that cannot be the argument. I will say...
It's perspective. Oh, no, that's not the argument. No, that's not the argument. That's not the argument. I'm saying if we're going to overreact, let's overreact to everything.
But I don't think
because otherwise, we're just missing the point, are we not?
Well, first of all, we'll get to that conversation in due time.
Well, we did it yesterday.
Okay, so we are not getting to that conversation any longer. All I'm suggesting is that this is not an overreaction, I don't believe, because it's a conversation that we have regularly about Gareth Southgate and about England. And why is it not an overreaction? Why it's actually a reaction to what they're doing is because it continues to be the pattern of this team. And we could focus on one individual player and say, well, he doesn't perform as well with the national team as he does with his club team. There's been thousands of players like that. But when you see a lot of the players from England not doing the same or having the same sort of performances that they have for their club teams, then you have to look for a pattern. You have to find a commonality, and that commonality is Gareth Southgate. So if you want to find the contrast and the context of this conversation, look at the rotation in the attacking half from Brazil. And look at the movement, the freedom of movement and the flexibility of movement of guys like Vini Jr., who starts on the left-hand side, but most of his dangerous play happening running in behind on the inside shoulder of the outside back or splitting the center backs. Who in England was doing that? Finding flexibility of movement, rotation of movement, appearing in different places in the attack. Nobody. That doesn't exist. And so that's my point. It's not an overreaction per se. It's just looking at a team that does exactly the same thing over and over again, regardless of the personnel, that doesn't have a whole lot of rotation and creativity in the attack and therefore becomes very predictable in moments that truly matter. We're talking at the highest level. We're talking at the elite level of competition.